Welcome to the Life Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Celeste, and I'm here for you, a heart-led entrepreneur, a life leader that wants to create a better world through your gifts. And enjoy your life while you are doing it. Lovely to have you here. Welcome to this episode of the Life Leader Podcast. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about overwhelm and how you prevent to be totally overwhelmed, in the sense that it will take over your ability to actually do what you need or want to do in your business. Because, it's very easy to become overwhelmed as a business owner. The list of what we should do can feel endless, right? And it's true. There are an infinite number of things that we maybe should do. Or actually, we need to change the shoulds to choose to. But anyhow, it's easy to get lost in everything that should be done, or that we choose to, that we want to get done. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, and with that often comes a lack of energy, frustration, confusion, and no motivation when we look at our to-do list, or even think about everything we know that we need to do. But here's the trick. We need to actively work on not going into this feeling of overwhelm, which can be really a rabbit hole. And we must catch ourselves when we start to go into the overwhelming patterns that draws us into this rabbit hole that leads us to depletion, stress, frustration, confusion, avoidance, or whatever it can be. We have to catch ourselves, because in that we can prevent the overwhelm, or the overwhelm to getting worse and to a place where we don't want to. And if we catch ourselves in time, we can avoid this that can come with it. Burnout, for example. And then we can give ourselves the exact things that we need in that moment instead. The right guidance, the right break, the right clarity, and oh my goddess, then our business gonna be so much more smoother, right? So therefore, in this episode, I want to describe how you fast can start to notice when you are going into overwhelming patterns that don't serve you. And also, how you can transform this heavy feeling of overwhelm into something lighter that gives you motivation, inspiration, calm, or enthusiasm, whatever you need to pull you forward in the right direction. So this is not about, suppressing our feelings. This is about not making things worse, because sometimes life is overwhelming, and that's okay also. It's nothing wrong with that. But it's what we do and what's happened and what action we take when we meet that overwhelm. And right now, I actually have to remind myself about these things, since I have a lot on my plate right now. Because less than a week from now, my partner and I are wrapping up our entire life here in Finland. We have lived here in Finland for almost 3 years. And we're gonna move to Australia. And with that, it comes with a lot to do. So a lot of practical stuff, packing, sorting out, fixing, cleaning, you name it. And then at the same time, I have my business to take care of. So I really try to practice what I teach here in this episode. And I will tell you, it's working. I even have all my 3 bags packed 1 week on beforehand. And the house is nearly tiny and, tidy and sorted out. So, of course, there is more to do during the days that are left, but I feel calm and I feel focused on the most important things, since I consider everything that can prevent me to get into the really overwhelmed rabbit hole. So I use my own tips that I will share here with you. Okay. Yes. So how do we avoid overwhelm taking over? Like taking over, because overwhelm will knock on our door now and then in life. But how do we avoid it to totally take over and, leave us with that, in that space that we don't want to be, that is not serving us? How do we prevent ourselves to go into unnecessary stress, frustration, burnout, and all other emotions that comes up with overwhelm? I have 8 great tips for you. So the first thing is to recognize. So it's to recognize the patterns that we easily fall into when we feel that we have too much on our plate. So if we can recognize and observe our feelings, our patterns, then we also more easily can see which pattern we act upon, and we can also then change them. So our saboteurs, our inner false protectors, are stepping in and doing more or less the 3 self-protections when we feel stress, when we feel that we are in some kind of, or that our mind register that, okay, now it's danger, now it's too much here. So I guess you have heard what our brain does when we feel danger, that danger is coming. We do freeze, fight, or flight. So when we feel overwhelmed, we tend to fall into one of these patterns, and maybe we also go from one pattern to another. So let me explain. Flight can come out as the avoider in us when we feel that we have too much on our list. We avoid it by coming up with excuses about we're not having time, we don't have energy, we don't have skills or money. When it's so much, we feel that it's actually going on, or it's not the right timing, or we don't have motivation. We kind of maybe forget or we want to forget what's need to be done. So we escape and avoid. We push it to, I will do it later. So this is a strategy because we just feel overwhelmed. It's just too much. And it can feel revealing for the moment, but to have this strategy and to have this pattern that we always avoid when it's too much, it can really stop us from moving forward and taking action on what's need to be done. And if this feeling about not being integrity, not being true to ourselves, is there in the background, reminding us, whispering to us, you need to do this video or send that mail, or doing this techie thing that you try to avoid. So can you notice this in yourself? That you easily fall into this pattern, the avoider, and come up with excuses. So if you recognize that you easily step in this avoidance pattern, what's good for you then is to really meet your feelings that comes up. And I will explain that later. Another strategy that we can easily fall into when we starting to feel overwhelmed is that we go into the freeze patterns. We feel totally stuck. So we don't want to avoid doing the things we need to do because we want to be in integrity, right? But we don't either know what the next step is. So we feel that we are in a limbo space because we want to go forward, but we feel blocked on what to do next. So we don't go forward. We are afraid to take the wrong step, choosing the wrong action. So we might start something, but maybe the perfectionist in us might be really fast to tell us that we are not good at this. So we might give up. And then we feel this stuckness, and that doesn't feel good. So we wonder what's wrong with us, and why can't we move forward and be more decisive? So here, the one step at a time method is great to do, among other tips I will soon explain. And the third patterns, fight. This pattern is when we feel overwhelmed. It's a pattern that overwhelms us even more because we try to do everything simultaneously. We do a little bit here, a little bit there, or we do a lot here and a lot there until we are close to burnout. We work and try so hard, but we just feel we move so slowly forward, like, a tempo of a snail. And our saboteur, maybe the overachiever in us, tells us that we don't go fast enough and we're not doing things as much as we should. And what have you done today? Nothing. Even if we have done a lot. I can actually really catch myself in this pattern many times. And I really have to talk with my saboteur. I have to kind of take a really good talk and tell, yes, I have actually done a lot. So if we have this fight pattern that we just try to do it all, we actually might need to slow down instead. Like that's the worst maybe we feel it's needed right then. Or take a break to get some distance to see things more clearly. So I often force myself into these breaks and these pauses and to do things slowly. Because I know that I'm starting to go into a pattern that just gives me even more overwhelm. So we need to tune into ourselves and our inner guidance as well when we actually take these breaks, because that's where a lot of clarity will come. And also then prioritizing is so important, and I will explain that even more later. So yeah, the second tips is remember your why, because sometimes we have a long list, we get lost in the details and we feel unmotivated because we just look at these tiny little bits and forget our why. We forget why we want to do this. And therefore, we have to remind ourselves, why do I want to have my own business? Why are you choosing to do what you do? Why are you choosing to do this in this way? This is the question we can ask ourselves to remember our why, to zoom out, and from there we can actually feel less overwhelmed. Okay, the third tips I have is to take one step at a time. So often we can suffer from passivity because certain tasks feel far too big and overwhelming. So this is again like, that we get passive or we freeze because it just feels as a too big project to do something. But if we break down what we need to do in smaller steps, it all becomes so much easier. For example, when I was going to start this podcast, I first felt a bit overwhelmed, to be honest, just by the thought of it. And then when I broke it all down into smaller steps, it immediately became so much easier. So very often, we just have to take the first step to be able to see if that was the right step or not. And in this, we have to go for progress, not perfection. And the fourth tips to prevent overwhelm is to notice the steps that you have actually already taken. Because, often we are so busy with all that needs to be done that we don't give ourselves the time and space to really stop and see what we actually have managed and all the steps we have taken until now. So if you think about it, can you see the difference between where you are now and 5 years ago? Both in how you have changed as a person and how much further you have come in what you want to give to the world. Maybe you didn't even see an opportunity to have your own business 5 years ago. Or maybe you can really see how much more confident you are in what you do, that you know that you are actually good in some certain things compared to where you were 5 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 1 year ago. So compare the steps with where you were before in the areas where you have actually developed yourself. And feel proud of the steps you have taken. So don't compare yourself with someone else, just with yourself. And that will give you a lot of relief also when you think about everything you need to do. And this feeling, when the overachiever in you, like, I have this a lot myself, that I think I should be so much further than I am right now. So this thing actually helps me a lot. That I can see how much I actually have done or developed myself on this until the last year or half a year or 5 years ago. It's like night and days. So this is a really, really good reminder. The fifth step is to prioritize. So we often prioritize things that don't need our attention the most. We may avoid what feels challenging. We avoid what triggers us. we get caught up in what is not so important. So this is, the really avoider in us. And, I have definitely been there big time. I have been sitting for hours and filling with the font of my website instead of really spending more time attracting new customers. And really, doing the, meeting my customers. And yes, I can still catch myself doing things that maybe is not the most important right now in my business. But when I catch myself, I can change the direction. I can prioritize differently when I have that awareness. So this is something I come back to over and over again, to not feel overwhelmed, because there's just certain things that are more important than others. And then we can ignore and we can avoid the right things. And when we prioritize what's important, we can also give ourselves time and space to learn the stuff we need to learn with patience, to really see, okay, this is something that is really important. So we actually can set aside time for things that takes time. For example, maybe you are like me, someone who has not seen yourself as techie savvy. And today I wouldn't call myself the world's most techie savvy person, but I'm surprised at what I have been able to do when it comes to techie stuff in my business. What I actually have managed to figure out once I took my time to prioritize and to learn it. And this is because I realize I have to prioritize learning these kinds of stuff, even if it didn't feel fun to do from the beginning. But the thing is, when we are starting up, we might not be able to prioritize to outsource everything, to have a virtual assistant that do all this techie stuff and things we don't want to do. And it's also really good to prioritize to learn some basic things to get to understand a lot of the foundation in your business, because then it's also easier to outsource it. And that includes some techie parts in some ways, I promise. It's really hard to avoid this stuff. And the sixth step to prevent overwhelm is to create clear boundaries for yourself and others. And this is so important. I see this happening over and over again for people. And this is to be able to prioritize and actually go to the action with it. Then we need to put clear boundaries for ourselves and others. So if we don't practice to put clear boundaries, then it's really hard to prioritize as well many times. So this is boundaries for yourself and for others. So for yourself, you can ask, where do I need to put more clear boundaries for myself? For example, should I get to bed earlier to get enough sleep? How long do I allow myself to scroll on social media? What boundaries do I maybe need to put around crap food, if that's a pattern in me? And when do I need to take a break? And when do I need to really sit down and work interrupted? And how do I do that? Because, all this bad sleep, endless scroll on your phone, distractions, bad diet, it makes you in bad shape and that doesn't help when you already feel overwhelmed. It just makes things even worse. And as I said, it's hard to prioritize. So boundaries towards others are as important as boundaries towards yourself. Are you a people pleaser and give your time more easily to others than to yourself? Do you let people into your life that have a low vibe and drag you down? And how can you turn this wheel around and surround yourself with more uplifting and inspiring people if that's the case? And yeah, there's even more boundary question you can ask yourself there. So really looking at, where am I not putting enough boundaries in my life right now? And the seventh tips is work with your feelings that comes up, because there is a reason why certain emotion comes up for you when you feel overwhelmed. And if you don't work through these feelings and take care of them, they will reappear in a different form under other circumstances. So I usually say that having our own business, where we are our own brand, is one of the greatest personal development journeys, courses that we can take, and also one of the most challenging. So many triggers may come up, and so many defenses and sabotaging patterns can become visible. And it can feel tempting to give up your business, to feel like, no, this is not worth it. It's easy to create stories that are not true. For example, to link the number of registered participants in your workshop to your value as a person, or buy into a story that you need to be liked by everyone, or that this is not for you and so many other people are already doing this. Whatever feelings come up for you are a symptom of unresolved stories you still believe. So you can be the best coach, therapist, course creator, or light worker in the world, but if you don't work with the feelings that comes up, you will feel overwhelmed by them, and you might give up your dream. And that's not what I want for you. That's why I work a lot with mindset work with my clients as a foundation for growth. So the eighth and last tip is to get help and support. And this is a crucial one. So many of us think that we should figure it all alone. Oh my God, that can be so overwhelming. I have been there, and I can tell you, not much was happening. And instead of getting support, I thought I just needed another certification, another course or workshop, but it felt so overwhelming. I didn't know what to do, what the next step was the best. But when I open up to receive deep help from coaches, a community, and people that really have skills in, for example, marketing and sales, that have helped me so much. And also asking for support and paying people to take over certain tasks have really helped me. It was like heaven open up when I could pay someone to take care of most of my bookkeeping. To be honest, it was such a relief. So I was actually crying with gratitude when I just allowed myself to receive that support. And that's why I also base many of my best offers on support. Support from me, but also support from a like-minded community. So this is something that really the participants in my course have so much appreciate, that it would not be the same if they had done this journey alone. It's something really, really special to have that accountability, you know? You feel that you are not doing this alone. And research says that we become 95% more efficient when we have accountability. There's different researches, but yeah, it's around that number. And that's what a coach provides. And especially with a group of other entrepreneurs, if we're talking about business coaching, where we're striving towards similar goals. So, yes, this is the overwhelm prevention tips I have for you, my dear. And this is your way that you can prevent your overwhelming patterns from kicking in. Because it doesn't have to be overwhelming to that degree that it sucks out the energy of you. So I hope this have helped you to get some more clarity on what to do next, to really maybe see some patterns more clearly and what to do with it. And yeah, I just would love to know what resonated with you in what I shared now. So let me know by sending me a mail on patriciaceleste.com or personally DM me on Facebook or Insta. You can find me on my name, Patricia Celeste _ Patricia _Celeste. It's on Instagram. And Facebook, you can find me on Patricia Celeste. So I would love to hear from you. Really, really. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope that you can prevent your overwhelm in the best way, because the world really needs what you have to share, and you have so much. I know, especially if you are here, I know that it's something that's really pulling you towards this. So yes, just let it all out and don't let the overwhelm take over. Bye for now.